This is not for me. This is actually, I would like to invite another guest on stage. This is a person who's gone above and beyond what you can expect to ensure that all of us had a fantastic 2 days together in the community, together among stake pool operators, ambassadors, friends of Cardano, but also blockchain skeptics who's been part of a growth program here at the Cardano Summit, not just in Lausanne, but in 50 locations around the world. So I'd like to say thank you very much to our head of marketing, who's been the orchestrator, the manager, and ensuring that all of this could happen. Could I have David Taylor on stage, please?
Uh-oh.
Thank you very much, David. We also have a gift for you, which we will, I don't know how you get it through customs though. Hopefully it lives on a blockchain as well. With huge gratitude from the community, huge gratitude from the Cardano Foundation. Say thank you for all the tears, all the hard work, but also all the pain you suffered and what we suffered when you were kind of whipping us to ensure that everybody here was fed, transported, were able to go on stage, could vote, and really just enjoy being together in the glorious Cardano community. Thank you very much, David.
Well, I certainly didn't expect this in any way, shape or form. Firstly, if I had done, I wouldn't have opted for a handheld microphone. But it's all for the Cardano community. Just been speaking to Charles backstage. Obviously, it's been a lot of hard work by a lot of people, not just us here in the building, but everybody around the world. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Frederick, do me a favor. Let's grab a little photograph, both of you down there. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, one last time for Frederick and David. This has truly been 2 days to remember. Not only have we thought big about our future, not only have we invested in you, the Cardano community, but we have truly reimagined what our future will be together. And remember, every single one of you are at the very center. I couldn't help but be inspired by the phenomenal success, the energy, and the shared sense of achievement at last night's awards. And I know that that same energy will carry you all through into the future. But it is my final honor to close the event out, to introduce your final closing keynote speaker. I know that you will join me with your excitement, with your enthusiasm. Cardano, please give a huge round of applause to your closing keynote speaker, Charles Hoskinson!
Hi, everybody. Hello, Switzerland. You know, there's warm, sunny Colorado. We got to come up with a tagline for Switzerland. First off, I'd like to thank the Cardano Foundation for everything that they did here. It's really been an amazing event. I came in from Scottfest yesterday, and I had a chance to go to the award ceremony yesterday. There was pyrotechnics in the room, and community voting and all these kinds of things. Even Hosky made an appearance. I guess this is Tuxedo Hosky. And what was so incredibly humbling was just the vastness of this. Thousands, if not over 10,000. The numbers eventually will come in, but I think there's more than 50 events, tons of community events, thousands of concurrent viewers all across the world, from Vietnam, people in Turkey, people in England, people in Germany, people across the US, Japan, South Korea. This started as just a small group of people in a room writing on a whiteboard. And look how vast it's gotten in just such a short period of time. And what great stewardship has materialized amongst you, the community, and what you've been able to accomplish. What makes Cardano so special is not the technology. It's always been the culture in the community. It's always been the approach. And we saw that very firmly this year. Last year was a pretty amazing and fun year, but it was also a very frustrating year. We saw pictures of bananas selling for $1 million. And they weren't even pictures. They were like a representation of a picture where you didn't even own the intellectual property, yet it sold for $1 million. And there were a lot of people making fast, loose money. And these incredible projects on paper come out, Luna and Celsius, and these amazing entrepreneurs praised by the media, like SBF at FTX. And they'd say, we know the future. And they say, oh, those Cardano guys, they're too old, they're too slow, it takes too long, peer review and evidence, we don't need any of that. You have to move fast to break things. The wrong way is the right way. People would even say that in interviews. And lo and behold, this year, the markets collapsed, one after another, like a bunch of dominoes. Meanwhile, we're here and strong. We are in one of the worst, most pervasive, most contagion-filled bear markets in the history of the cryptocurrency space. We've never encountered anything like this, where every regulator in the world is having difficult conversations at the moment, where every consumer in the world is a bit scared, where my mother calls me and says, are you broke yet? It's happened to some of you too. Come on, show of hands. Yeah, there's a few. Yeah. Why? Because on the news media, what is it? One thing after another. Crisis, crisis, crisis. Scam, scam, scam. Failure, failure, failure. Crypto is over. I was just at Web Summit. 77,000 people. It's supposed to be a conference about technology. It's supposed to be a conference about bringing the world to the next generation of web technologies. And the panel they chose to put me on was 2 skeptics and a blockchain enthusiast. And we spent 15 minutes haggling and arguing over whether crypto is a scam or not. 2022. Yet you're all here. You all dream. We don't feel it here, do we? We feel love here. We feel camaraderie. We feel friendship. Why? Because what started this movement and what allowed it to grow from a small little room with a whiteboard cramped in Japan and Hamachi to what we have here today on this amazing magical stage in this beautiful city is this unified belief that we can do better. All we have to do is just be honest about it, have some integrity. We have to be willing to do the hard work and the heavy lifting. We have to be willing to accept that sometimes we don't have all the answers. Sometimes first principles are required. Sometimes research is required. I didn't go to school to learn how to put on a conference. And a lot of people in this room didn't either. But we just have to figure it out, right? And I did it for a few years. Now the CF has done it, and every year it gets better, much better. What degree do you get to become an expert in game theory, distributed systems, programming languages, law and policy, and speaking before Congress, and God knows what else? Come on, there's too much here. I was just hanging out with some of the CF people backstage, and right before that, they showed me this beautiful bottle of wine. You guys remember the country of Georgia? Well, they closed the deal, and the CF has this amazing thing that they've done with the country where you have a QR code on the bottle and you can scan the bottle and it tells you all kinds of stuff about it, and it's on Cardano blockchain. That was something we were talking about as an example use case, as a hypothetical, and now it's a reality that you can hold in your hand. You think anybody knew how to do that when they started? No, we figured it out. It was a problem to solve. The world works a lot better when you have a problem-solving mentality and you eschew cynicism, because every problem you run into is not a wall. It's a fun challenge to figure out. Every barrier is just an excuse to figure it out how to get around the barrier. So many times in life, when you look at your life, you have to either make one fundamental decision. Does life happen to you, or does life happen because of you? There's too many of us who have been convinced by the media, by Hollywood, by friends, by parents, by people we're in relationships with, that maybe we're not in control of our lives, or we just have to accept our lot in life, deal with it. Perhaps luck will be on your side, and every now and then something good happens, but for the most part, just bear with the bad, and that's life. Accept it. Be stoic about it. What this movement has been a quixotic rejection of the concept that we don't have a say. That's the core of it. Crosses languages, it crosses cultures. The sun never sets on Cardano, never has and never will. When we look at the Catalyst statistics, over 160 countries are represented amongst the voters in Catalyst, and that's only a subset of the holders of ADA, less than 10%. 160 countries for something that was built less than a decade ago. Imagine that. And what does each and every person there think? I can, I will do, I will build. Together with us, we're going to figure out how to solve these problems. Life is not going to just happen to me. I'm not going to allow geopolitics or the particular circumstances of where I was born or what happened to define me or my lot in life. Instead, I'm going to use this technology and somehow, some way, make it better. And maybe it's better and then I want to build a better voting system. Maybe it's better and then I'm going to come up with an innovative new business model and make some money. Maybe it's better and that I care a lot about the environment and I want to find a way to save the environment, to do something a little differently. Maybe it's better that I'm an artist. I actually want to do art instead of go work a job and do art at home because art doesn't pay. Let's talk about community events. I was at CNFTCon earlier this year, and they invited me, and I expected a few hundred people to be there. I show up, there are 3,000 people there. A community event that was put on. In Las Vegas, 144 exhibitors. Almost all of them were non-technical. They came from the art community. This is a blockchain conference where the vast majority of people are artists. That was unheard of in 2019, 2020, even 2021. Yet, it's just something our community did, and they came together. And you have these guys and gals teaching themselves how to program and super innovative things. There was a manga where every edition they issue, the fans vote on the Cardano blockchain for what happens next in the story. In that one room, there was probably a master class in creativity, and it was completely community built. And it just almost brought a tear to my face. Then I go, and a few weeks later, to Rare Bloom in Colorado, and again, tons of innovative, interesting, unique, and special projects and programs. Yeah, some will fail, some will succeed, but it's being built by people who believe they can instead of that they can't. That's what makes this so special. And once you have that mentality, you stop thinking so much about the news. You stop thinking so much about the day-to-day stuff. And actually, something magical happens. You get hope back. The anger recedes and hope returns. And then with hope, you can love again. The world gets much better. No matter how bad things get, you know, one day it will be better. And you have a say about it. Now, there's a lot we still have to do. The single hardest part of Cardano is up next in 2023. It's the age of Voltaire. We're at that last picture. Now, I picked Voltaire for a good reason. He was a huge skeptic of democracy, but also a skeptic of the monarchy because he kept getting banned from them and banished from them. Brilliant guy, wrote over 20,000 essays and books and pamphlets, sometimes under a pseudonym, sometimes under his name. I don't know how he didn't get assassinated, given how many people he pissed off. It's good to be that guy, sometimes. But you know, he taught us all a lot. And he talked about this idea of tending our own garden. Everybody seems to have political opinions about how governments should run, how companies should run. This leader XYZ should have done this and that. But Voltaire used to say you have to tend to your own garden. It's one of the famous quotes from Candide. Well, the time has come for us to tend to our garden. We have to find out how to actually run Cardano as a completely distributed ecosystem, a completely decentralized ecosystem, something that truly leverages and harnesses the voices of millions of people. You are not truly decentralized unless you have come up with a mechanism that takes the abilities, talents, means, and wisdom of the crowds and applies it towards the problems that ought to be solved for the greater good of your system. And thus I'll argue that no government is quite decentralized because no garden has been truly tended. So many times Again, things happen to us. We're ignored. The best people don't lead. The best people are trivialized. We saw this with COVID. We saw this with wars. We see this with the leaders of nations. We ask ourselves, how the hell did that person get elected? How is that person in charge? How is that decision made? In my own country, the ruling party, the top 3 people in their 80s. And I see them speak, and I see the ideas they have, and I ask myself, in a country of 300 plus million people, surely there must be better. And then I look at the party that wants to replace them, and I see the candidates they give me, and I say to myself, oh, God. So we must figure out how we as an ecosystem can be better and solve this incredible problem that has plagued humanity for a long time. And I believe that there are 3 components to it. One is that everybody has to have a voice. You have to be able to give consent. It should never be the case that you don't have one. So we need to create a good voting system that has high levels of participation, and every holder of ADA, every member of this ecosystem feels that they have a voice, big and small, and at the very least they can leverage that voice to try to push things in a particular direction. Now, because you have a voice doesn't necessarily mean that that voice is the one that's going to win, but at least you were allowed to say something. So the great news is that we've already built an enormous amount of these mechanics. If you look at SIP 1694, which we worked on, and there were some generous contributions from Matthias Bencourt, who's from the CF, that SIP is the beginning of a conversation about how to reuse things like the staking mechanics, the way stake pools work, the way that delegation works to stake pools for delegated representatives. This actually would be a very easy system to roll out in a reasonable period of time, and it's something that we know we could conceivably get equivalent participation to the participation we get with stake pools, which is currently 74%, which is 50% greater than the amount of people who vote for the president in the United States who are eligible to vote. Pretty good participation if we can get there. And it's a good way for thousands of people throughout the world to rise up and become delegated representatives to express ideas and directions and strategies and disagree and agree and come up with all kinds of raw, chaotic governance. Now, that alone is not sufficient for us to be able to unlock and harness the power of the community. You also need great institutions. Institutions are bastions of complexity. You see, to have good things in life, like airplanes and trains and this microphone, the lights, to go to a hospital and get surgery and survive, you need to have expertise. People need to devote their lives to thinking about these things, to studying these things, to working hard. So institutions are the places that we construct, whether they be universities or hospitals or think tanks, and they should be enduring and credible and neutral. And their job is to take the problems that we face, whether they be research problems or problems with climate change or problems with supply chains, whatever they are, and think about them very deeply and try to propose some solution for these things. You need to augment a voice and the representation of voice with institutions we can trust. We built some institutions. I.O. in a certain respect is one. Has a huge research group, many labs. One I just opened at University of Edinburgh. We opened a lab earlier this year in Stanford. There's labs all across the world, 165 papers written. We have a huge engineering group. There's a lot of brilliance there. That engine can move in any direction, and that engine can solve most problems, but not all. There's another great institution, it's the institution that put on this conference, the Cardano Foundation. Within it, it has wonderful people with decades of experience in everything from regulation and law and policy and compliance and risk to now an increasingly larger group of people that understand things like marketing and branding, that understand, they did the Georgia deal, for example. And that institution's here to stay. It's well endowed, it's in Switzerland, it's politically stable. And so the key that we have to figure out is how do you embed those institutions in the right way to provide value for the Cardano ecosystem and make sure that they enduringly provide value and that more institutions come. There are thousands of potential partnerships that we can bring in, and all we have but to do is ask and partner. So another institution we're proposing, and it's going to be a great fun debate to have, is a members-based institution, a members-based organization. Basically a neutral ground for people to come and have a governance and technical steering committee and all these things, to actually have domain experts, dApp developers, you, the people building on Cardano, have a voice and be able to suggest, say, and sometimes demand the things that you need to be competitive, the things that you need for Cardano to evolve and grow. If this is done in the right way, we could see it grow to thousands, tens of thousands of members, and run itself by the members for the members. Then it's a natural place for other institutions like IO, like Emergo, like the CF to plug into and add value to in their own way. You see, that's how you work together constructively. You don't tear things down, you don't say radically change things, you just keep adding. You just keep building, you let people fall into roles where they feel most comfortable and capable and able, and then each and every one can then add their value. The other thing is, we have to make some heavy decisions about the future of Cardano. At ScottFest, we unveiled Ouroboros Leos. It's a project we've been working on for over 4 years. An incredibly complex, ambitious, and beautiful protocol that, if fully implemented, usually it's called input endorsers, but it's a lot more than that, will make Cardano the fastest and highest throughput cryptocurrency on the market. And it will always be pretty fast because it actually grows with data and network capacity. So as those things organically improve, your internet connection gets faster, your storage gets faster, these types of things, your processing power gets faster. You can tweak the parameters like parameters are tweaked with the update system to make the network faster. Now, there are some design trade-offs. There are some decisions to make. There's a lot of open question marks that IO cannot answer. We've gotten to the limit of what we can do as scientists and engineers. And now begins the conversation with the community. And what's so cool about it is that in the discussion of that, the debating of it, the use of the SIP process to decide the roadmap and future of Cardano, what's effectively happening is the great decentralization of development, engineering, decision-making, and ultimately the roadmap of Cardano. It's a changing of the guards in that respect. So this is why it's one of the most interesting and just incredible SIPs that I've seen. It's been too long where we go off into the ivory tower and write papers and think really hard and then go and write those things and try to figure out how to solve all the problems. We're not that smart. We have lots of credentialed people, we have lots of great processes, but no one is smarter than everyone. And the thing is, if you're going to change the world and bring billions of people on board, you absolutely need to have a mechanism to harness the whims, desires, wills, and brilliance of billions of people, not just a small subset of them, no matter how good that subset is. So combined with the MBO, I think Ouroboros Leos is a great opportunity to start talking about how we awaken as a true open source project, not just open source code, but an entire open source community of thousands of developers from thousands of projects, each and every one of them pursuing those projects, but in the process contributing upstream and making Cardano more resilient and powerful than ever. I believe we can do that. And again, it'll be hard. There's a lot of tough questions, a lot of education, a lot of workshops, a lot of things to be done. And that's why you have institutions like IO, the CF, and others, because they have the resources, the people to help shepherd and steward that process in a productive and positive direction and eventually allow it to converge to a point where decisions can be made and they have the consent of the masses. Now, we're not quite done in that respect. There are 3 pillars to this governance. The third is rules. You see, even if you have institutions and you have democracy, you do need some assurances that the rights of the minorities are protected. You need some assurances that human rights are protected. You need some assurances that a temporary hysteria of the masses cannot be used to inflict harm upon others. And that's why constitutions exist. You don't write a Bill of Rights because you're a trusting person. You write a Bill of Rights because you're a student of history. You write a Bill of Rights because you know historically things can and will go wrong. And even if you trust the virtuous leaders of today, the not so virtuous leaders of tomorrow may decide to abuse the power and authority that they have and derail the system. There's a lot of stuff here that people signed up for. Cardano has a fixed monetary policy, for example. There will only ever be 45 billion ADA. We believe that because of the reward function, but there's no reason why technically it couldn't be voted and changed. So it's probably pretty good to write it down somewhere and make sure it's pretty strong. This is closely related to DAOs. This is closely related to dApps and DeFi. This is closely related to a lot of the things that are currently happening across the whole industry when people are talking about decentralization. People are talking about code is law. People are talking about protocols. This is just making it somewhat explicit. There needs to be a constitution for Cardano, or at least a discussion of whether we should have one or not. And yet again, what this allows us to do is to see the values of everybody in the Cardano ecosystem and how far apart or how close together they are. And what it does give us is a consistency about the governance of the system and constraints to the governance of the system. So again, through the SIP process, the primary medium of change of Cardano, this is how we'll go about it. And we'll have that discussion. We'll work together in this respect. I don't know where it'll go. We have some ideas. Others have some ideas. And it's going to be fun no matter where it concludes, because it at least tells us where we're at and where we stand. And we're going to learn an enormous amount along the way, and my belief is whatever happens, it's going to be something quite interesting and quite good. It's exciting. How often in your life do you get to write a constitution? How often in your life do you get to build an institution, one that could stand the test of time? How often in your life do you get to build a better voting system than the one that you grew up with, and actually see that voting system be applied and used to build great things? This is the age of Voltaire. It required Shelley and it required Gauguin because it required stake pool operators, many of which are in this room. It required Plutus developers, many of which are in this room. It required a large network across the world. It required all the people who participated in Catalyst for the last 2 years from those 160 plus countries, millions of votes cast, because those people had to be primed, ready, willing, and able to participate in the process of building the government of Cardano, wherever it goes. And what's so cool about it is, like this conference, instead of hosting it, instead of having to worry about how does it get done, I am, like you, just a participant in it. There is nothing in my life more rewarding than that. To have seen something that I helped build grow to a point where I'm just a voice in a chorus. Just one man. As it should be. That's a pretty exceptional thing if you think about it. There's human nature to love leaders, especially if you think they're doing an okay job. It's not really human nature to change the guard unless they're not. And the paradox of decentralization is you have to do a good job but also find a way to change your role, which is why we like people like Cincinnatus, because they found a way to do that. And that's a lesson for every project founder, which is why we also created the Edinburgh Decentralization Index, another one of the announcements we made at ScottFest. I am so deeply bothered in this industry by people claiming they're decentralized, and they're not. The problem is I have no right to judge them because I have no metric upon which to measure them. Thus, we need to create one together, and that's what we're doing. And we'll start with Bitcoin because it's the largest and easiest and been around the longest, and there's probably a great degree of interesting decentralization and some surprising centralization there. And then work our way down systematically, one cryptocurrency after the next. And eventually, after enough are measured, it can become an industry-wide standard and a North Star for all of us. Because we truly do need to know, are we decentralized? And if not, where aren't we? These are the types of institutions we must build if we desire to be successful. We must build them because we need the information from them to guide the decisions we make, the protocols we build. When you take a look at a new consensus protocol, a lot of people think transactions per second, finality. These are the words that they use. How many say, will this increase the level of centralization in the system? Because you can't measure it. If we could, then you could at least ask the question. So when we look to Ouroboros Laos, and they say, it'll increase the throughput of the system 500x. Sounds good. Transaction costs will go down 100x. Sounds great. But it reduces the level of decentralization by 50%. How many of you would vote for that? Okay. You see, but we don't get to answer that now, do we yet? So that's why we created it. And that's an example of an institution. We put it at the University of Edinburgh, one of the largest and best computer science schools in the world, because they'll be a good custodian of it, and they're objective and neutral. 100 years from now, that'll still be around, if it's properly endowed. And that's the point. And there are other North Stars to look at. And that's the question that we should ask as we build things like a constitution and MBO, or don't build them, as we embrace them and don't embrace them, as we partner with institutions and not partner with them, of what North Stars do we need? Another one was peer-reviewed research. Why? Everybody always asks me that. Why did you pick something to slow yourself down so much and write all these papers? Because we need a brain, a decentralized, culturally neutral brain. 165 papers. You think they're all written by one guy in one country and one university? No. More than 35 countries. Women, men, dozens of languages. One person spoke Aramaic. I didn't even know anybody was alive who spoke Aramaic. But apparently it did. Go figure. Small community in Iraq. So what does that mean? It means that there's a process, even as the names, the faces, the languages, the institutions change to get good science. 20 years from now, that process will still be here. 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And you who decide these things get to ask the question, this research you're proposing, because everybody can always propose research. If you say something with enough confidence, anybody will believe anything. But at the end of the day, you need to be able to say, well, that's all fine and good, and it sounds great. But reality distortion aside, who's checked the work? And are they credible? Has it stood the test of time? And if not, why not? Why must you inflict upon millions of people who put their lives, their money, their time, their effort, their brand, their reputation, your ideas, if you're unwilling to have other people verify them and check them? You see? It's a cultural component. It's part of who we are now as an ecosystem. It's one of the reasons why this culture is so powerful and why this culture resists cult of personality, strong leaders and these other things. Because at the end of the day, everybody does expect the work to be done. Even if you like the person, sometimes you have to get rid of them. Even if you think the person's great and brilliant, they're not going to get an excuse not to do the job. That's how you win. And the burden is now upon you, as much as it is us, to think about what other North Stars do we need to add to our institutions and to our governance to help guide us as we decentralize Cardano more than it already is. What else do we need to add for us to harness the brilliance of the millions and eventually to the billions? What do we need in this ecosystem in order for us to be successful? Now, we'll keep doing what we do. Keep doing my AMAs, don't worry. Those are too much fun. And I'll try to make them better and add more to them. We always are trying to mix things up. Still, somehow, some way, find a way to do things like Cardano 360. Formats may change a little bit, might add some new graphics and flashy stuff, and the foundation keeps growing and evolving, and Emergo's doing cool and interesting things, and new products are launching, like did you guys hear about Midnight? And that's a powerful one. Boy, I wish I could do a whole presentation on that. But that's going to happen. So that's not going to change. But the big thing that I think is going to change in 2023 is you're going to see a lot of new faces who are old faces. People who have been here for a really long time. Everywhere I go, I see I've been in Cardano since 2017. I've been in Cardano since 2018. I was part of the incentivized testnet. I was a pioneer. I did this, I did that. But I said, well, how come I've never seen you before? They did it. It's just they didn't have a platform to stand on to be seen. And that's the power and magic of what we're constructing together now, is we're building that platform to be seen. And because they're seen, for the first time ever, they can actually truly be heard. So the thing we must master is to listen, to understand. The reason why governance is so hard at its core is that we overvalue speaking and we undervalue listening. We overvalue proclamations, personality, charisma, and we undervalue understanding. We overvalue winning and undervalue the concept that perhaps people both can be right. In so many cases, when we disagree with each other, we're not disagreeing about facts and circumstances, we're disagreeing about values. In so many cases, when we disagree with each other, we're talking past each other, not to each other and with each other. If this is truly going to work, it's not going to rest upon great technology. We've already proven to this industry that we have the best. It's not going to rest upon a great community. We've already proven to this industry we have the best. If you want to challenge that, look at our Twitter sentiment versus Solana's. Okay? Or even Ethereum and Bitcoins. There is panic and blood in the streets. No one's sweating here. We feel good. Stuff goes up, stuff goes down. You know, it's like that meme, first time, eh? You know what I'm talking about. We've already proven all of that. What we haven't proven, and in some cases not done so well on, is that we can listen to each other. That's going to be the hard one. And that's the one that we're all going to have to work on, myself included. It's a lot of work, that type of growth. But ultimately, it's the only way that we will win and the only way we will build. This year, I saw so much evidence that not only do we have the capacity for that, it gave me the belief that we can do that. And that's why I've always believed that Cardano is not only here to stay, but it's going for number one. We're going to win, guys. And after all, why shouldn't we? Seriously, isn't it about time the good guys win for once? We're here to change the damn world. We're here to give everybody their freedom back. We're here to give everybody their life back. We're here to give people their power back. We're here to inspire people. We're here to give people control over the aspects of their life, their money, their identity, their voice. We're here to give economic identity to those who don't have it. We're here to give hope back. In a world so utterly bereft of these things, in a world where every year you wake up and you're told it's going to get worse the next year, it's about time that somebody wins who says it will get better. Isn't it? So that's why I'm here. That's why you're here. So let's change the world. Thank you.